Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 319. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with the editor-in-chief of pucksandpitchforks.com, Nick Villano, streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios inside the bunker, an undisclosed location, beautiful North and South Jersey, covering the Garden State. As the title of tonight's podcast is No More Devils Injuries. No more. No mas. We got a great lineup tonight. Two great guests. Whoops. As we're on the eve of the home opener. We'll be there at American Whiskey tomorrow for Game Day Live and Devils After Dark on the big stage. Turning it over to you, Nick. That was the cue.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was actually retweeting the show and trying to come up with catchy captions. Hey, listen, Sam. It's we did the big the regular season preview last week. We had Robert Aiken and Daniel Moya on the show, and what a difference a week makes, right? I want to be happy because I think the Devils look good. I know there's a lot of people who are like, well, they don't really look good. I think they actually do look good. This is what I expect. Or how about this? This is what I expected. I think this is good with how Jack Hughes is playing. Jack Hughes is not playing that well, and we're 2-1. We beat the bricks off the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like, just tore them out of the building. I understand they scored 3 goals, but, 2 of them are kind of softies. And, now Jacob Markstrom's hurt. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit more in a few minutes when we have our guest on. And then we beat Columbus. Yeah, Columbus came hard and fast in the first period, but I got to be honest, Sam. A lot of those shots were weak in the first period. They were from bad angles. They were from far out. Jake Allen, not trying to take anything away from Jake Allen, did a phenomenal job. There were some of those that were hard ones to stop. But I'll be honest with you, Sam. I think they had 6 or 7 shots in the second period. I thought they had better scoring chances in the second period in those 7 shots than they did on the 18 or 19 they had in the first period. So I think the Devils are doing a good job. I think the forward lines are gelling way faster than we ever thought they would. The first line is the one that's been the worst. Not the worst. The fourth line did pretty bad against Columbus.
I would just say ineffective.
I'm just comparing. When I compare the Nico Hischier line and the Cody Glass line have both been phenomenal. Incredible. So having a secure and truly good top 9, because I think that the Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, and Bratt's been really good. So he's been doing a lot to carry that line, and they've done well on special teams. But I just think that when you look at the totality of what we're looking at, the first 3 games, 3 tough opponents. Give Columbus credit; they've looked good to start the year. And you're going to the home opener against Florida, who's dealing with yet another injury, just like us. I think it's on the ice, I like what I'm seeing. Off the ice I hate it. There's an injury every day, so I don't like that.
Well,
but
that's
I guess
a good
we're going to
segue.
jump into that, right?
Yeah, it's a good segue.
Yeah, so we have a really special guest today, Dr. Harjas, who's you have to, if you don't know him on Twitter, you're making a mistake. He's somebody who can do instant analysis on injuries, and he's starting to integrate himself in the hockey world. He does a really good job. Dr. Harjas he's with us tonight because we have a lot of injuries to talk about. How you doing, Doc?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing great. I really thank you so much for meeting with us tonight because we have a lot of injuries to talk about. There's the Devils have been getting hurt left and right. So I want to jump in. Just for those who don't know, can you kind of give your background a little bit to the fan base?
Sure. So I'm just a family doctor here in Vancouver, Canada. And while I was doing my training, I was actually living in Winnipeg, and I do a little Twitter project, which I actually basically borrowed from some doctors who do it for NFL injuries, where I'll do a little bit of an analysis, mostly based on video. But every now and then there's some good tidbits from various media outlets. And so sometimes I'll add a little commentary to that. But it's tough, as all you guys know, the NHL injury information is quite limited. So I try and add in as much as I can. I mean, I guess it's a double-edged sword because it's so limited. People come to me asking for information. But on the other hand, because it's so limited, sometimes I got nothing to go off of. So yeah, do it for fun. Mostly just post on, or I guess I should say X, not Twitter. And it's
I'm
yeah,
boycotting
it's
that
grown
name,
a little
but
bit.
that's okay.
Yeah.
But from what I recall, you were pretty right on the money about Markstrom last year. If I remember, am I remember that correctly? I'm pretty sure you had the MCL from the video, and it kind of eased our minds a little bit when it looked like it could have been just from the untrained eye, it looked like an exploded knee. But you were kind of like first say that it could just be an MCL injury where he could be out 6 weeks, which is pretty right on the money. Am I remember that correctly?
Yeah, that was a concern. Although I think I threw in there that it could have been a groin strain. That one was a bit odd. I remember his leg twisting underneath. I actually rewatched the video last night just because I couldn't remember if it was the left or the right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean the batting average has been a little down this year compared to norm, but yeah, but every now and then it can be pretty straightforward and clear. And so I think sometimes as a fan, which I am as well, you fear the worst case. But I was like,
Yeah.
I think this will be okay. Unfortunately, he missed Four Nations. I'm sure that mattered a little
Yeah.
bit to him. But yeah, he was back and obviously able to play in the playoffs, which was the key.
Yeah. So let me jump into Markstrom because he's hurt again. I know you were talking about the video from we saw from the Columbus game on Monday. A weird fall, right? And then this time it was the right leg, right? It was very clear that he wasn't putting weight in the right leg. They came out today and said it wasn't as bad as they thought it could be. What was your interpretation? Do you think they were worried about a tear?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were probably worried about the grade of the injury, so the severity of it. Again, they didn't give us a diagnosis this time like last year. But if I'd mentioned both high ankle and MCL for the knee yesterday, I mean, I would lean more towards the MCL and the knee. So it's a ligament on the inside. It's there to provide support. When you try to give an athlete or a patient a timeline, you will rely on the scan and historical data. So I'm assuming they got that MRI done yesterday, most likely. And then, they got to see it. So it wasn't fully torn. It's either, partially stretched or maybe partially torn. And so that gives them more optimism that it's I think the report they released to us was couple weeks. Was that the word, right? They didn't put a number. I think it was couple. So
Yeah.
yeah, so most
Which I
likely
assume
grade
couple
one, which
means
is
two, but
reassuring.
maybe that means. Sorry, I assume couple means two, but I don't know if that maybe
Yeah.
like 2 to 4 is probably where I'm putting it.
Yeah, which is okay, right? It can be a lot worse. Like I think if it was grade two, like last year, we would have gotten the 4 to 6 week timeline. That was the initial press release. So a little bit of a stretch there, which makes sense because he didn't leave the game immediately, right? I don't even
Yeah.
think he was like formally on the injury report. It wasn't brought up to me. I remember seeing that Jake Allen had cramping, and then Markstrom, I thought, just finished the game, which he did, but clearly he was in distress. And then when he skated off the ice, he was on one leg.
So I want to give him props for finishing the game. What kind of pain threshold do you think he was dealing with at that time? If it was either a stretched or a partially torn MCL?
Oh, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was bugging him quite a bit. And the other thing is you got to think like it's completely different as a goalie because when he's getting into a stance with his knees caving inwards, he's actually putting a little bit of stress on the inside of his knee. So it was definitely bothering him. It might have even felt like a little bit loose to him, and he
Ugh.
might not have felt like he necessarily trusted the knee as much. And then yeah, the pain would have progressed. Luckily, I can't remember that goal scored, 20, 30 seconds left. So real
20
time,
seconds.
maybe real time he was skating off the ice within 5 minutes. And it was already bothering him, and it probably would have continued to actually get a little bit worse as the night progressed.
Okay, that makes sense. I want to skip back to Evgeny Dodonov because I know a lot of people were critical of the Devils, so I just kind of want to get your thoughts I think a lot of people misinterpret what X-rays are negative is, and what can you just like kind of give us a quick explanation? Like, what does that mean when initial X-rays come out negative, and like what the maybe just give us a quick idea of like what's the next steps after X-rays are negative?
Yeah, I kind of hate that terminology because I don't know if everyone really knows what it means, right? So X-ray
I
being
don't know what it
negative, well,
means.
yeah, it's not showing any injury. It's not showing an abnormality. It's not showing you an explanation for the patient's symptoms.
Yeah,
And then, the flip side being, well, if it's positive and you're talking about an X-ray of someone's hand, well, then it's most likely showing you a broken bone. It's I feel like it's used more in media press release than in maybe our jobs or behind the scenes or even amongst sports teams, medical staffs. They're probably not using positive, negative. They're probably saying this is what it shows and this is what our plan is. And so every NHL arena has an X-ray machine. He would have had one done. They were on the road, right? I'm trying to remember. Were the
yeah,
Devils on the road when he
yeah. They
got one?
haven't played
Yeah,
at home yet, so everything's on the road so
yeah,
far.
yeah. Okay, sorry, I'm not fully fully in
No,
touch
you're
with the
fine.
Devils.
You're
Yeah,
following every
yeah,
team. You're
yeah,
doing the
yeah.
Lord's work.
And it
So
was
you're doing
so it was on
great.
the road. So they would have still, yeah, they would have gotten the X-ray there, and then most likely it looked okay. They didn't see any
Yeah,
broken bones. They said, let's see how things are going. Whether his pain was out of proportion for what they expected, or perhaps there was some other reason for them to suspect that, hey, you know what, we need to look into this further.
yeah,
And so most likely he got a CT scan, gives better bone detail, and you can't get that the same day. So they go and get that the next day, get the interpretation, and they probably find out that there's something subtle there. And it's early in the year, like possibly it's something he could play through. There's lots of hockey players and even athletes in other sports who've had small bones broken in their finger or hand,
yeah.
and been able to keep playing. But considering it's October, they're probably like, hey man, just take a breather. Let's let this thing fully heal, and then we'll come back in November at some point.
Yeah, yeah, and they put him on long-term injured reserve, which means he has to be out for a minimum of 21 days. So he will be out till November, unfortunately. I expect him to be out till at least November, at least. I guess he theoretically could come back at the end of October, but I think it's going to be at least 4 weeks based on some of the Cabo Caco on Seattle has a broken hand. He's out for 5 to 6 weeks, and then there was another person that's out at least 4. So that's what I would expect. When you break your hand in hockey, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but do you expect, like, is this one of those injuries that's going to take until the offseason to heal fully, or is a broken hand like that something that once you're cleared, you're good to go?
I would say he will be pretty close to good to go. He might be back before his strength is 100% equivalent, in both hands. But I would say, like, by December for sure, you would expect for him to have regained that strength, full range of motion in all of his fingers, basically able to do everything. So no, it's not an off-season thing. And again, from an outcome standpoint, like we're talking ability to score goals, ability to make passes, ability to battle in the corners, he'll be fully there. But I think if you ever have a chance maybe to sit down with him and be like, how does your hand feel? Be like, yeah, it feels good, but it's not 100% there right now. It was nice to get the first game out of the way. And then if you were to touch base with him in a couple of weeks later, he'd probably be like, yeah, no, hand feels 100% the same. Like, I'm good to go.
Okay, let's go. I'm just
Yeah.
glad. Yeah, there's some of those injuries that take forever. they
Yeah.
take until the
Yeah.
end of the season to kind of get you that rest, just not playing hockey at all. So it's good to hear that he'll be back to 100%. Sooner rather than later. I want to talk about Jack Hughes for a little bit, just because he's obviously the number one person we're watching when it comes to injuries. He had the 2 shoulder injuries, and then he had a shoulder injury, I think 4 years ago. So we're talking about 3 shoulder injuries in his career. If you're thinking about him from just a doctor's point of view, are you worried about that just continually being a problem throughout his career, or do you think like these are just kind of fluky things?
It's probably somewhere in between that. It's not fluky. He is unfortunately at higher risk, both to injure that same shoulder and for the other side, despite having the surgery. The other thing is, because it's actually relatively common, I'd have to go dig up the study again, but there is a little bit of data that shows that player performance drops off after. And
Ooh,
so you will have
love
a
that.
little bit of, yeah, you do have a little bit of concern
Okay.
with Jack Hughes. And, he's been over a point a game, I think, pretty much I don't know, since 2021 or 20, pretty much like
Yeah.
after his first 2 years or something like that. So you would consider his performance basically the same. But no, I wouldn't say that these are just fluke outcomes. He is sort of at higher risk. If you wanted to look at a comparable, someone like Tarasenko, I believe had
Mhm.
3 procedures on his shoulder, but since the third one, he has technically been healthy, albeit not the same elite scorer that he was before. And so, like if you're a Devils fan, I think you hitch your wagon to him. You hope everything stays fine. But he is a little bit higher risk than let's say the average NHL player.
Um, I've noticed he hasn't had that elite puck handling that he usually does. Do you think that that's just building strength on the shoulder, or is there another reason involved? Like, is there a hockey reason involved? I know you can't say the hockey reason, but
Yeah.
like with the shoulder
Yeah.
impact.
No, I get where you're coming from. I would say at this point, his procedure was. How long ago are we talking here now? But
March.
we're far enough out that I would essentially consider him to have regained all of the strength and the range of motion. He will say it probably doesn't feel exactly the same. And the other thing is to prevent it from coming out all the time. It's going to be a little bit tighter. That's kind of the goal of the surgery, with the
Okay.
healing of it. But if there's any sort of, I don't know, limitations in his performance that you can see out there, I wouldn't necessarily tie it entirely back to his shoulder. Like, I do think there's probably more hockey factors at play, whether it be at line mates, just confidence and things like that. But no, I wouldn't say like, okay, he's just severely limited. You know what? I'm kind of interested to go back and look because now we have the NHL Edge data to see if there is like a drop in velocity with the shot or anything
Ooh.
like that. But I don't think there's any written proof of that exists. And so I wouldn't necessarily tie it back to that unless, we get some more data in the future. We look at players who've had surgeries and we say, hey, look, their shot velocity is down by whatever miles per hour.
So obviously his brother has had 2 shoulder injuries in a row. Neither as severe as Jack's, but
Mm.
Luke did get surgery this offseason. Is there any, you're a family doctor, so you kind of can see patterns between families. Would that be something that you looked into, like that, like the Hughes have an abnormal shoulder? Is that like a possibility, or is that just something like is that like a media or a fan narrative?
No, there is studies that look into these types of things, different part of the body, but yeah, they're done twin studies on torn ACL. So if one twin
Okay.
ends up tearing the ACL, the other twin's a lot higher. I think it's quite significant. Like I want to say it's like 8 or 10 times more likely. There is a genetic component to this. Yeah, and you might meet people if you ever meet someone who's dislocated their shoulder. They might say, "My dad had this," or "My mom had this." So there is a bit of a pattern. I can't sit here and give you like whatever nuance it is in whether it's the shape of the bone or the way the labrum is or the specific medical reason. But yes, there is genetic data on that, and I bet you if I took a look after, you could find something about shoulder dislocations and family history patterns.
It's interesting to say that, and not to make it about me, but my father had knee issues, and then I tore my ACL in high school, and I never kind of like correlated it. Just besides they both happened during like I tried to hit somebody in the rain and fell full weight on my ankle, which tore my ACL. So I
Mm.
just didn't think about it, but I guess maybe there's a predisposition. That's an interesting. We're gonna have to try to find some of the studies that you're referencing, just because I'm always interested in kind of the medical science behind it. Maybe there's a much bigger article there for me. Um, I want to pivot real quick just because I kind of want to talk about
And
like the totality. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, that was gonna say, I was like, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Uh, um, so the Devils have a lot of injuries right now. They had a lot of injuries last year. They had a lot of injuries the year before. A lot of people just throw out, the medical team or the conditioning team or so have you, isn't doing a good enough job. Is that something that is looked upon? Like, I know this happens with the Yankees too. The Yankees, whenever they have a lot of injuries, they're like, look at the conditioning staff. Is that something that like maybe doctors kind of like consider when you're looking like, this team has a lot of injuries, so we assume it's going to continue to happen? Or again, are these just fluky things that we're trying to find answers for?
I think there can be a bit of both. So a
Okay.
lot of hockey injuries can be flukes. So any injury that's from a puck being hit into you or a hit from another player or like skate cuts, obviously there's those. But the like recurrent muscle issues, um, can be things that you have to look at your team. And the thing is, I think it would be very different. And so if you're a team at the end of the season who looks at it and goes, we had the most man games lost, or there's a pattern where, hey, we've been top 5 in the league for man games lost for the last 3 years, I do think you need to look at it fully as an organization. So yes, you would start with the medical staff and say, okay, are there some deficiencies that we have? Are we not doing a good job coming in preseason? But actually, I think you have to look at fully as an organization. So, big word that gets thrown around in sports now is load. Load management is not a thing as much in hockey as it is in basketball. But, how are we scheduling things? Are we taking enough days off? Are we actually taking too many days off from lifting or the off ice part of things? Are we
Oh,
factoring how much wear and tear our players are taking from travel? And this is an interesting season because there's an Olympic break, so it's a more condensed schedule. So have teams
yeah.
appropriately planned for this condensed schedule already. There's more back to backs. So you also need to step back and look at it from a fully like organizational standpoint and say, are they actually optimizing things for their players' health? So if you do see a pattern with a certain squad, I think it's enough time to step back and look and say, okay, which injuries do we think are flukes? Which ones do we think we have some control over? And have we done a good job of actually creating a plan entirely for our players to reduce this risk? But I think hockey, more so than some sports, can be a little more on the fluky side for injuries because you look at a sport like football, look at a sport like soccer, there's lots of like hamstrings and calves. Like those muscular things are something that you can look at and say, what are we doing putting our players at risk? Whereas hockey, I think a lot of the injuries can primarily be tied back to like contact or things that are outside of your control, whether it be the puck, someone's stick, or actually the body that ends up putting players out.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Because I have noticed there's a lot of injuries this year too. Are teams more prone to injuries early in the season as they like ramp up their conditioning, or is that another one of those things that's just kind of like some years it's more in the beginning, some years it's more at the end. There's no real, injuries just happen when they happen.
I gotta find it. There is someone who had some like informal data, not a full blown study, but they did put it out there, and there is slightly higher rate of injuries very early in the season. And then there was some commentary from some retired player. I can't remember who it was, but they were just like, "Well, everyone's groins are just killing them early on this season." So yeah, there is a slight uptick in injuries early on in this season, but I think it usually averages out after the first month, and it stays pretty much the same throughout, even through the playoffs. I'd have to go find this. It was like an informal data set that someone had, but yeah, there is a slight uptick early on in the season.
Now, last question, Dr. Harjaz. I really appreciate you spending this time with us, and this has been very, very good. I feel a little bit more knowledgeable, a lot more knowledgeable than I did coming in. So this is definitely like great context for us, so we don't light everything on fire and get upset. You definitely like calmed me down for a lot of these injuries and kind of gave me some context. But I want to ask about a long-term situation, and you kind of brought up groin, so I have to kind of talk about Andre Palat. Because I have a
Mhm.
theory about Palat that he looked really good the first month after we signed him, after the Devils signed him,
Yeah.
and then he tore his groin, was out for like 4 months, I think, or 3 or 4 months, and he's never been the same. Never been the same guy. Complete anchor. He's clearly still one of the smartest guys on the ice. Just his body can't do it. Because I know hip injuries have done that to players before, but is a groin injury something that can take you down a notch for the rest of your career, or is that something more prone to, is this just maybe age catching up with him, or just the amount of hockey he's played?
Yeah, I mean he's 34. He went on all those runs with Tampa, so he's got some miles. But no, groin injuries definitely can. Especially like the more significant ones, that can sometimes require surgeries. So if I had to pick someone as an example, like you could look at someone like Erik Karlsson. I know he had a blip and led D-men in scoring and won the Norris, but after he ended up kind of tearing his groin in San Jose, I think he largely wasn't the same player either. And so it can be one of those things where you just never get that full strength back. So you just don't have as much explosiveness in your stride. And as much as to our eye, when we watch them on the ice, they don't look super slow. I mean, this is the game at the highest level. So we're talking about the most minuscule margins, which make the difference between being someone who's getting, 40, 50 points a season to like 20, 30 points a season. And so it can be enough to cause that. Plus the fact that, he's kind of getting later into his 30s now. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you had to tell me, like, am I all pessimistic about Palat? I would say I am.
Okay, and that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think a lot of people are pessimistic about Palat, so that island's pretty full. The Palat pessimism island is that's definitely pretty full. Dr. Harjas, thank you so much for spending time with us. Take a minute just to kind of promote what you're doing with hockey, and then promote your practice. Let everybody know where to take their kids. Like if you're in British Columbia, let everybody know where to find you.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate it. So, I mean, I'm a family doctor here. It's a town called, or city, I should say, called Richmond. It's right beside Vancouver. It's a suburb of Vancouver. We work out there. There's a group of us there. You can always swing by. There's a big shortage actually of doctors here up in Canada. Which we could do an entire podcast on that, completely different way, because you don't have to do the big promote your practice thing out here. I mean, every single person is just absolutely flooded with work and trying to find less of it. But yeah, honestly, I love the Twitter interactions. So you find video, you find a quote from a coach or media member, whatever, with anything about any injury, just shoot it my way. I try to get back and reply to everybody. So anything at all, even if it's other sports, I'll reach out. I try not to give personal medical advice though, so try not to send that my direction. It's that's kind of not the extent of what I'm doing on there. But yeah, honestly, it makes my life a lot easier instead of trying to dig for videos. If you see one on your
so you can't help me with my sore throat that I'm doing right now. I can't kind of just put my throat up to the camera. No, I'm just kidding. I appreciate your time. And listen, if we have another cataclysmic event of injuries, we'll definitely have you on again soon. Thanks, Dr. Harjas.
No worries, guys. You have a good night and good luck this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was good, Sam. I'm really excited about that one.
It was great. I learned a lot. I've got doctors in my family. I got 3 doctors in my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam,
that doctor talk is they're smart people.
We've had a lot of guests on this podcast. We remember that one year we branched out. We had a bunch of different people, like from different lines of work, and we can even say we had a realtor on here because we had Eddie Lack on the show. But I think that's right. Is that the first doctor?
No, we've had doctors before. Doctors before.
It's getting hard to keep track of all the guests we've had. I think
we
fun.
May have had.
That was a great one though.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite interviews we've done.
Yeah, no,
do we have the other guests or?
No, I'm still working with them. I don't know if you want to go solo or whatnot.
Yeah, I'll go solo for a little bit.
Yeah,
see what you can do to get it working. So listen, the injuries stink, guys. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not happy. Like, everybody seemed pretty positive about Jacob Markstrom, and maybe it's because they were really worried with the swelling, and I probably should have asked Dr. Harjas about this, but with the swelling and everything, sometimes it's hard to kind of see exactly what's going on. But the good news is that the positives are still outweighing the negatives. Arseny Gricic looks insanely good. and that's really helping replace Dodonov, right? That's he's giving you top 6 production, even though he's next to Connor Brown on the bottom 6. He's giving you the top 6 production that you were expecting out of Dodonov. You're seeing the Nico Hischier line with, Timo Meier looks really good, which is making up for the slow start for Jack Hughes. You didn't lose Nico Dawes in the offseason or in the preseason, putting him on waivers. You didn't lose Nico Dawes. So that's a good news there. You got 30 days from when they put him on waivers to keep him on the team before you have to put him on waivers again. I think you're going to see him play a lot of games. Relative. I think he'll play half the games while he's up, as long as he doesn't play not well. Right? He had that pretty bad showing in the preseason. I think that was just shaking off the cobwebs. He looked really good in Utica. From at least that first game was really good. I think he lost 1-0, which was terrible. I hate that. But looked really good in that first game for Utica. And Utica's gonna be fine. Jacob Malik is a really good talent. You don't want to throw him to the wolves like this, but you got Jeremy Brodeur, who's played in the NHL before, so you can get him a couple games. But the depth that the Devils have provided this team. They called out. They lost Dodonov, played McEwen. McEwen looked really good. First game, he looked much better than McDermott did in this lineup. He really, his speed allowed him to fit much better and make a bigger impact than McDermott ever did. But then McEwen gets hurt. Immediately he gets hurt. You bring up Hallinan. And Hallinan didn't have the best first game. I think that line was just kind of having a rough night with Glendening and Cotter. Cotter's looked really bad, but that's okay. He looked really good with Gretzky in the first game. They called him up, or they moved him up to the third line. Paul Cotter hasn't looked the same with the guys they've brought up, whether it's McEwen or Hallinan. But hey, listen, Hallinan, I think he could develop something with Glendening. I think they're going to give him the old college try, but if it doesn't work, they got Bordelot, they got Cruikshank, who, Angus Cruikshank is somebody who spoke to JB Gambatese, who we got coming up in a couple of minutes. We have there's one more guy that I'm missing. Anyway, there's a lot of guys in Utica who can come up at any time and look really good. Oh, they have Haminaho and Shane LaChance. Those are the two that a lot of people thought that LaChance is going to get the call up instead of Hallinan, but everybody was happy for Hallinan. Hallinan looked really good last year. I think he scored a goal in the second game of the season for Utica. So, he's kind of one of those like quadruple A players, as they say in baseball, like too good probably for Utica, but he's got to prove it in the NHL. So we'll see about that. But the depth is really helping. Sam, you're back.
I'm back. I'm doing a little tech check with JP. He's in the Andy Green room right now. You want to bring him on?
You why don't you introduce him since you did all the work?
Well, thanks, because I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I'm too scared.
Okay, I said JP Gambatese, but I might be wrong.
We'll have to find out. We got a thumbs up, so please welcome to the podcast on the State of the Fan Address. We have JP Gambatese, writer for Devil's Advocates on Substack. You can find him on Twitter or X at JP_Gambatese. JP, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you, my friend?
Good, guys. Thanks for having me on. Aced my last name.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I don't know if anybody noticed. We just had we had Dr. Harjas on. I didn't try. I got the first name, wasn't trying the last name. I know my bubble, and that was if he told me how to say it, I would have. But he already told me how to say his first name, so I just stuck with it. And I feel like when you're a doctor, like I could call you doctor the first name, right? Like Dr. Mike, Dr. whatever. So anyway, I'm kind of going into strange places with this to start, JP. But I do want to kind of jump right in because I just talked about the
yeah, let's do it.
The depth. and you just talked to Angus Cruikshank, and we have Brian Holland in New Jersey. Can you just give those who haven't seen it yet, promote the interview we did with Angus, just kind of what was the conversation about, and like what did he talk about when it came to the Devil's depth? Like, is he looking like, is that his goal, is to make it to the NHL? Like, where is he going with this?
Yeah, he's definitely kind of dead set on the roster. We had a nice conversation about what his expectations are, and if his role in the AHL is any different than it would be in the NHL. He seems like he's pretty comfortable in the AHL. He's ready to take that next step. Fully understanding that it would be in a third, fourth line role, but for my money's worth, I would have him second or third on the call up list for sure.
That's awesome, yeah, and it's been a lot with the injuries. Do you think that? Let me just straight up ask: do you think Tom Fitzgerald did better adding depth to this team? Learning from the mistake of last year, where they went into the postseason with Cody Glass as a 2C. Where you had pretty much nothing behind him.
Yes and no, I think. I think as far as third and fourth line depth goes, absolutely. I'd much rather have Connor Brown and Arseny Gritsyuk and all the new additions there in the bottom six. But at the end of the day, top six depth was really what I was looking forward to. Really, what I was hoping would be added. And if that's the expectation that was set, then I don't think he met really anyone's goal.
Yeah. So you watch this the same way I watch this. I know you look at it from an analytics point of view, but in the offseason, I know you're kind of looking at like who's available and who's not available. Are you surprised at how little is available? Like I know that Montreal is like they're supposed to be taking the next step, but they have Kirby Dach as their 2C. So are you surprised at how little is available with so many teams wanting to buy?
At this point, like, not really. I feel like we're always set with these expectations of, this offseason is going to be so crazy. And then everyone just ends up re-signing their own guys because, who wants to get rid of a second line center?
Yeah. Yeah, and you saw it with the Devils, right? The Devils were going to non-tender Cody Glass. And then they realized that then they wouldn't be able to afford him, right? That is that what you saw? Is that because that's what I thought I saw, is that they put it out there. They saw that there was incredible interest in him, and then kind of changed their mind. Is that what you saw too?
Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to put it, unless they maybe thought that they could bring him back for under. But even then.
Yeah. And imagine how much worse the situation would look like if they didn't have Glass, right? Glass has started off the season pretty well, right?
Oh, for sure. I think he's been. I mean, the third line has been pretty great. The analytics are a little shaky there, but so far as they're putting the goal in the back of the net, I don't really care at 3 games in.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's kind of where you differ for some people in your realm. So for those who don't know JP as well as those who have our eyes glued to Twitter like us, you are going into it with an analytics focus, but I do think that you try to take the nuances with it, while others literally looks like they read a spreadsheet and decipher who's going to win a game. I do think that you try to at least figure out the nuances, I do think that while you have an analytics focus, it is still an enhancement to your hockey knowledge. Is that how you would kind of put it?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like a lot of people in the analytics community use that as their main focal point of analyzing a hockey game. I try to use my eyes first and then see what the numbers back up. Hopefully, the numbers back up what I'm seeing. But if the numbers aren't backing up what I'm seeing, then I kind of rewatch what I was previously watching to see if I could view things under a different scope. But it also, it comes with the territory of kind of being prospect focused too, is, there's no analytics for people who aren't really in the NHL. There are, but they're really, really limited. So being that I'm also trying to dial in on the of prospects. It's, I have to take things with my eyes too.
Right. We've had Byron Bader on the show, who's one of the more prominent prospect analysts, and even he says that, you're dealing with a limited set of information, where in the NHL you have the NHL Edge data, you have Evolving Hockey's data, you have Jay Fresh's data, you have all these different people who are you have Dom's model at the Athletic, you have all these different people who have these data sets, and I feel like you kind of analyze them as a whole. Do you have a favorite? Is there one that you like more than others?
I like Evolving Hockey's the best. One thing that I've tried to use more. Yeah, they're so awesome. They're so brilliant, past my mind's comprehension. But one thing that I've been trying to do more is use their RAPM model, which is kind of an individualized, isolated from everything else. So I think that gives a pretty good perspective on a lot of things that aren't necessarily covered by the other ones.
I actually take solace in that I'm pretty sure that Josh of Evolving Hockey did a face reveal on our podcast, because we had him on a couple times. It's kind of like behind the EW face wall, but he was like, you know what, I'm sick of being hidden. I'm gonna come on with my face on for you guys. And then they did their own. Him and his twin brother are doing their own podcast now. So I take solace in that the face reveal I think happened on the Let's Go Devils podcast. So yeah, those guys are great. I love Evolving Hockey. Their contract model is always probably the closest of the one out there. Their models just tend to really hit the nail on the head. So, if you're not doing Evolving Wild or Evolving Hockey, you're kind of missing out. They're really killing the game.
I couldn't agree
It's not
more,
a question. It's not a question. So I'm going to jump to I want to talk about you just did an in-depth analysis on Dawson Mercer. I have a feeling until he officially breaks out, there's going to be a Jekyll and Hyde relationship that the Devils fan base have with him. I think a lot of people just love him because he's the one thing that came out of the 2020 draft that's actually worthwhile when you had all these picks. And for a while there, he was playing even better than Alexis Lafreniere and some of the other guys who were picked way higher than him. But obviously he had kind of two rough seasons in a row. Last year was even worse than the year before, and he's coming into the season with a big role. He's in the top six. He's next to Nico Hischier and Timo Meier. I didn't like what I saw in Carolina. I thought he got kind of caved in. Obviously, everybody looked better against Tampa, and then he looked his best against Columbus when they really needed him. So, when you were analyzing his game, when you're really looking into it, what did you find when you're doing that article?
Well, the one thing that I've always noticed kind of just watching him is that when he's tasked with the responsibilities of being the primary offensive driver on his line, he just struggles. It's I wouldn't say he's a good skater, he's a fast skater, but I wouldn't call him a burner. He has good hands that he shows on occasion, but I wouldn't call him a dangler. For me, I've always noticed that he's at his best when he is able to kind of let his line mates do the play driving work there, and kind of float into open space, float into gaps in coverage. We all see the shots that he's able to pull off in really tight space. He's able to lift the puck like nobody's business right at the net mouth. So, when he's able to use those tools that he has in a complementary role, I feel like he's a lot better. And, I was looking at the data to back that up, and it was prevalent in 2022-23 when he was on one of the most dominant lines in the league with Hischier and Tatar. In 2023-24, he kind of stepped away from a top six role, and all of a sudden he's producing almost 20 points less. And then last year, obviously, he played the majority of his minutes away from the top six, and he didn't look very good. So, Yeah,
no, it was definitely bad. Let me ask you this: what is the ceiling for Mercer? Do you think he's a? I wanted to make this comparison because I think that a lot of people kind of get lost with how young he actually is. but I kind of looked at his trajectory against like Jesper Bratt's, and it's kind of similar. Bratt had that. He actually had a really good first 3 months, and then he fell off, and then he kind of was like inconsistent for the next 3 years, and now he's Jesper Bratt, right? 60 to 100 points somewhere in that every year. He's the superstar winger. I don't think Mercer has that, but can he be that, or are you looking more of a guy who like maybe like an Adam Henrique, where you're like you get a couple 30-goal seasons out of him, but he's a two-way, really good two-way guy for most of his career?
Yeah, I think that's more of where he's going to sit. I don't know if he's ever going to put up the point per game or near point per game seasons. But if he's deployed correctly in the top six as a complementary piece, I don't see why he couldn't put up 2 or 3 30-goal seasons. Maybe a 60-point season eventually. I don't think he's ever going to be more than like a 65-point guy at his peak. But the two-way play is obviously there. He's obviously very good on the penalty kill. The Devils trust him with some heavy minutes, and he produces pretty well in those minutes defensively. But yeah, as far as offensive output goes, I wouldn't be too high on him.
What? Yeah, like you said, you're not too high in the offense, but what would make you satisfied? Like, give me a point total and a goal total that you're like, this is a satisfying Dawson Mercer season in 2025-26.
Say like 30 goals, 25 assists, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's the number. I think the goals is the number for him because, like you said, he's not driving play right now, and he shouldn't be, right? Like you're on Nico Hischier should be driving play when he's not. Timo Meier should be driving play because they're both really good at it.
Yep.
So if he stays on that line, which I think he should, JP, I'm going to be honest with you. My main worry here is that Glass or Glendening or Hischier gets, or Hughes one of the centers gets hurt, and then they just go back to over-reliable of third line Dawson Mercer or second line center Dawson, whatever the case may is, just fill him in that role. I really, really hope that doesn't happen. I hope the centers stay healthy, so they just sit with what they're dealing with. I really like the down the middle right now, but yeah, that's kind of my big worry with Dawson Mercer.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, if he is forced into that role, I hope they put one of the play-driving wingers alongside him. Say maybe, he stays on the second line as a second-line center, and at least then he has Timo Meier, who, historically speaking, he has produced with. He has produced pretty solid underlying numbers, too. But to put him on the third line with, say, I mean, even Gritsik at this point, it's 3 games into his career. We don't really know if he can drive play at a consistent and elite level. Or Connor Brown. Like, if he's going to be next to those guys, I don't think he's going to find the success that he is alongside one of the other play drivers on the team.
I do want to ask about Gritsik because this looks so fantastic. Are the analytics backing up what we're seeing?
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Yeah, I try not to overhype, and I've tried not to overhype Gritsik all offseason. I really liked him in the KHL. Like, I think he looked. The KHL's a weird league for guys like him. You can even see what they did with Demidov in the KHL, and then how he immediately came to the NHL and looked better in the NHL than he did in the full year of the KHL. I kind of expected Gritsik to look really good. I guess, like, all right, let me ask you this. Do you like Gritsik better to fill out the top 9, like to give them 3 solid lines, or do you think they just need to keep promoting him and get him in that top 6 next to Hischier and or Hughes as soon as possible?
That's a tough one. I think right now, as it stands, the Devils are better served with him on the third line. Just because, as much as Palat is an absolute anchor in the top 6 and should be nowhere near even the Devils organization as a whole, Jack and Jesper are doing their parts of keeping him afloat.
Yeah.
While the second line is obviously doing very well, and the third line is also feasting. So I think the power of having two lines right now that are outplaying the opponents on a nightly basis is more important for the team's success in the short term. Um, but once everyone is healthy, once the Devils have Nason back, once they have a couple of their other depth pieces back, um, I think there's definitely a path for him that makes sense for him to transition to a first line role. I just think right now, settling into the NHL. He looks phenomenal, but it has only been 3 games. Um,
Mhm.
so settling into a role and, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mentality, I think would serve the Devils pretty well in the short term.
So I have two more questions before I can let you go, and we've I know we were kind of working out some difficulties, so we've had you longer, but I just kind of want to get to these real quick. In your analysis, like one of the harder questions I'm having to answer, and I guess it's not hard because it's kind of down to two players in my head, but when I look at this lineup, and you just brought up Nason coming back, so Nason's going to come back. I assume that Hallinen's going to be the guy that comes out. Who are you taking out when Dodonov comes back? Like, say nobody else gets hurt, obviously.
If I were coaching, it would be Palat. But man, I mean, as of right now, I feel like Paul Cotter has been the worst Devils
Yeah.
forward. So I
He's
feel
such
like
a
the
skilled
easy
man,
answer
but
is him.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he looked really good with Gritsik. But once they took Gritsik off that line, it's very clear that there's just something missing there. There's a lot of mistakes, over skating and bad positioning, and that's kind of like the Cotter thing. I made a joke that if Paul Cotter spent every waking moment of the offseason watching tape, he'd be a first line forward because
Oh, no doubt.
he's got every skill set. He's just something's missing with the knowing where to be and knowing what to do. And you know, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I love him on the team. But I think that's the answer. I think you gotta have Paul Cotter sit in the. Maybe you send. I don't know who's in the press. Do you know who's in the press? Like who's up high? Who has Breland's role from last year? Because I know Breland's back on the bench, down on the
I
bench,
have
and
no idea.
yeah, I don't either. I don't even know. They might not even have one this year because they're a coach short from where they were last year. They
Yeah.
fired 2 coaches and hired 1. So, but maybe you do something where like you send Breland back up there for a game or two to sit with Cotter and say, "Did you see that? Did you?" Because I think Cotter
Yeah.
has to play kind of like Breland. Breland was a skilled forward, but not nearly as skilled as Cotter. But he carved out a really good NHL career because he was one of the smartest guys on the ice, which is why he's a good coach, right? He knew exactly where to be, when to do it, and how to do it, and what role to fill for the Devils team. I think if you bench Carter, I don't want to call it even a benching. It's just a really good. It's just a really good situation. The Devils have a lot of forwards. If you have Carter sit for a little while and you have him sit with a coach, say, "Did you see that? Did you see that mistake, or did you see that good play?" and let it click for him, I think you're gonna have a really good player in your hands. But he has to do it.
Yeah, I think the only other solution that there could be, because to be honest with you, I haven't liked how Glendening has looked either. Maybe if they shift Cotter over to the middle, which I know is something that they were playing with a little bit during camp.
Yeah.
Um, like maybe that's a solution. Maybe they bench Glendening, put Cotter to the middle. I don't know, something there though between those two guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, Palat would be the easiest, but I get it because
Yep.
he's Palat sitting in Dodonov's spot, and all the other lines are kind of meshing. Yeah, listen, I think they're going to end up doing Cotter. Just kind of letting
Yeah, I
him
agree.
take a breather. Last question I have for you is I do want to talk about the injuries. We just had the doctor on, and he gave us a lot of really good insight of the injuries. But I kind of want to ask you a different, like a roster question. Do you think they've had an injury yet that's, I don't want to say devastating because, do you have one that's like really changes your expectations for this first few weeks of the season?
I don't think so. Um, thankfully they're mostly minor pieces. Nason is expected back soon, which will be nice considering Dodonov is out for the next few weeks. I think the most devastating one, if you want to call it that, is Markstrom's injury. But thankfully we can roll with Jake Allen for a little bit, and there are only a couple of back-to-backs coming up that I think Dawes would even have to start in. So they have a bit of a favorable schedule in terms of goalie injuries, as bad as a goalie injury can be.
Yeah.
But it hasn't really tempered my expectations. So
Both work.
there's
right?
nothing.
They both work.
Yeah. But there's nothing.
All right, one more question. This will be a quick one. Are you more hyped about the season, less hyped, or just as hyped after 3 games from what you've learned?
Me personally, I'm just as hyped. I feel like if you were coming into the season under the perception that the Devils are going to be another wild card team, I feel like you should be more hyped. But the Devils have one of the hardest opening schedules. Carolina, Tampa, Columbus is whatever, but then you have Florida, you have Edmonton, Toronto. The Devils are coming out of their first 3 games with 2 wins, and Jack Hughes has not looked like Jack Hughes. They're missing some key pieces. So in the long term, I feel like fans who were kind of under the expectation that the Devils would be a wild card team should be more hyped. But for an analytics person, I feel like I'm exactly as hyped as I was before.
I love that, and I feel like I'm a little more hyped. I really loved how they looked in that Tampa game, and I think that they're going to get back to that. Like the forechecking, the stealing pucks, the making plays, shutting down opposing offenses. I know Tampa's kind of in a weird spot right now, but I really liked how they looked, and I liked how gritty they were against Columbus. So I think that they're in a really good spot. JP, take a minute. Tell everybody where they can find you, what you got coming up. Really love your Substack. Really love your Twitter account and the threads you're putting out. So tell people where to find you and what's coming up.
Yeah, I appreciate you. So on Substack, I run the Devil's Advocates publication. So you guys could find me there. I try to get stuff out every day, every other day. Obviously life takes control there. I work 65 hours a week at my day job, so it's a bit tough to have time to get something out every day. But I really try to get everything out on there. As far as some exciting up and coming stuff, I'm planning another interview. I just had one with Angus Kirkshank, but I'm planning another one with Brendan Dillon. So that should be an exciting one.
That's a fun one.
Yeah. It should be really good. I really like his perspective on things, even if the analytics are a little wonky sometimes,
I love the interview he did over the offseason about the neck surgery. I mean, he was very candid. I think it kind of fell under the radar, too. Like, we wrote about it, but I felt like I was saying for a while, like, I think he's going to look better this year because I think that neck surgery, like you saw what it did for Eichel. Eichel came back and looked really good. So I think that's going to be an important piece. I know that the results have been mixed so far, but I think that's also like learning to play with Nemitz. A confident Nemitz is a wild card on the ice at all times. So that's going to take some getting used to. But I think I do think he's with the right guy for now. I think they're going to get there, and I think they're going to look really good.
Yeah,
but,
I
JP,
agree.
I really
100%.
appreciate you coming on.
Ooh. Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Sorry, my phone just fell off there.
You're totally fine. JP,
thank you guys a lot.
We'll definitely share that interview with Brendan. We really appreciate you coming on. We'll have you on again soon.
Of course. Sounds great, man. Thank you.
Thank you. That is JP Gambatese, Devil's Advocate on Substack.
Wait, listen, Sam. I'm not going to say the C word, but there's a lot of it right now. The Devils fans have a lot of places to go, which means we have a lot of guests that we can go to. A lot more. People are doing video. People are doing the written word, and then there's the AI slop that's stealing our stuff and just regurgitating it. So I guess you can read that too. I'm a little mad about the AI thing, Sam. I'm not that it came up a lot this week. so I'm a little salty towards the AI. But besides that, there's a lot of great. There's more people right now writing about the Devils than at any time during my time here. And you know what I realized, Sam?
What's that?
This is my 10th season at Pucks and Pitchforks.
Wow, and we're in season 9 with the Let's Get Over podcast. So, wow.
Nico Hischier was talking about his 9th season. He's entering his 9th season. And I said, wait a minute. I covered his draft, which means I am entering my 10th season. And I also saw Amanda Stein saying that she's entering her 9th season, and I covered her taking the Devils job. So, do you remember who had it before Amanda? I know somebody that I can't remember.
Sarah Baker.
Okay.
Sarah Baker actually hired Amanda. But I'm not sure if Sarah Baker was actually doing
reporting.
I think she may have been the director of
I remember Sarah Baker.
Yeah, director of the C Word.
Yeah. So she was the job that Chris Westcott was in.
Yes.
Friend of the podcast, Chris Westcott.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
And Sarah Baker
had
a very great career covering the Flyers and being on that show with it was some morning show, Crossing Broad, down in Philly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Jillian Mealy. Eventually she went to Fox News, and then now she's doing PR. Don't ask how I know all this stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of great voices in hockey. It's exciting. I'm not gonna lie to you, Sam. I think we've had this conversation where I was like, man, it felt like a drag last year. Like, it just felt like a drag. And it's a couple reasons. I'll just come out and say it. Twitter, the negative voices in Twitter are so much more prevalent than the positive voices, and that kind of like gets you down when that's like the main conversation piece I have with the Devils fan base. But also it's just, on paper, a return to the playoffs should have been exciting last year. It just wasn't, just because it was a putter, a down to the playoffs, and you kind of almost like
the little
taking
engine
the
that
dog
could.
out the slaughter. Well, the little engine that couldn't get past the first round. So it was like, but I come into the season just feeling a little different. I do think, like JP said, like if you're coming in expecting a wild card team, they look better than a wild card team. They look like a 2 seed. I think that's kind of where they are. If you're a 2 seed, Carolina gets the 1 seed, I think you look at it as a positive. Washington's look well to start the season. Rangers haven't scored a goal in 3 home games. They're shut out 3 home games in a row. That's insane. The Islanders look terrible. Shaver looks really good. He's going to be in the Calder Trophy race with Gritsik, but the team looks terrible. Columbus looks like they're going to be in the same spot where they are. I think they're going to get the wild card this year. They're better than I thought they were going to be. They're going to get the wild card. I think Philly looks better, but I still think they're not good enough. I think Pittsburgh looks better than we thought. You kind of called them on our previous show that you thought they were going to be better. They look better, but I think they're kind of playing house of cards. And I think the Devils are far and away the second best team in this division. I think it's going to play out that way, that they get the 2 seed. They'll play probably Washington. It'll be a battle of the hot goalie in there. If the Devils go in with a hot Markstrom, I think they win easy. I think if they face what's their goalie's name? I'm blanking.
Which team?
The Capitals.
Logan Thompson.
Yeah, it was Thompson. They have another guy too who's really good. Charlie Lindgren. If one of those guys is really good, it'll be a really good series. So I think the Devils should win either way if they're facing the Capitals. I think they're a better team than the Capitals. You just got to stay healthy. But anyway, so that's all I got, Sam. We can do plugs.
Yeah, why don't you plug first?
PucksandPitchforks.com. I'm not gonna lie, Sam. I am sick of talking about injuries, but I will do it as much as I have to. We've written probably 15 stories on the injuries, from Seamus Casey to Jacob Markstrom to Jake Allen to McEwen. They're all up there. We're talking about the injuries, kind of what the timeline looks like. I'll probably write about Nason tonight. So we'll do something on Nason, kind of where he fits in the lineup. That maybe he's going to be. There's a possibility he could be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's home opener. Really excited for that. Excuse me. And I wrote a piece on Buffalo. Who should the Devils target at Buffalo? We had a long conversation about Tage Thompson last week, but there's two other guys that I think the Devils should really consider.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, pucksandpitchforks.com. Yeah, and it's linked. I have the link to last week's podcast in that article. So we got big things coming, Sam.
Great. Are you going to tomorrow's home opener?
I am waiting to hear from the Devils.
Okay. All right.
So
didn't mean to ask you on air.
It's all right. I TBD.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have a long night, Nick, because we're going to be at American Whiskey for the home opener out in the big stage in the middle of the street called Edison Place. Right next to American Whiskey, across the street from Prudential Center near Championship Plaza. I know they're going to have Fan Fest. They're going to have the players walk by, all that good stuff. Yeah, so we're going to be out on the big stage. I've been working on it for the last few weeks, getting our gear ready. And that's about it. And also the morning woo tomorrow.
If you're somebody who hasn't come to a lot of games or hasn't been to one of these big stage experiences, it's so much fun. The Edison Place, the Championship Plazas.
Yep.
It is bumper to bumper Devils fans. Everybody's excited. There's cheering, there's chanting, there's refreshments. It's a party in a way that's not like I've been to like Yankees parties. I've been to a couple of hockey parties where you kind of like but this is a hockey party where like you can bring your kids. That's fine. Like there's kids at American Whiskey and they're eating and everybody's having a good time. It's a really great atmosphere. And those big moments, like the home opener, it's even if you don't have a ticket to the game, going to American Whiskey is worth it. It's so much fun. Just get over there, stay and watch the game there on the big screen. Have a good time.
Everybody likes my haircut.
Oh.
NY Davey. It's my attorney haircut.
Nice.
Yeah.
I need a haircut so bad.
Yeah, get one.
This no haircut life is not for me, but yeah, I
was pretty fugly there for the last 6 weeks. Anyway.
What are you gonna do? We're doing our best.
Yeah, we're doing our best. Anyway.
At least it's curly. Like it's not like ugly. You know what I'm saying? Like it gets long and curly. So
my hair appointment almost didn't happen today because yesterday I had to fix my tire because I'm gonna have a flat tire. The guy that fixed it didn't fix it right. So today I had a complete flat tire. Had to get the spare tire. It absorbed my whole day. So now I'm gonna leave
get a
this
patch.
I got it patched the first time around, and
Yeah, the
then
patch doesn't always work.
what's that?
The patch doesn't always work. It's like a 50-50. I would say it's like a 70-30.
Are you talking about
Will
plug?
work, but no, I'm talking like the patch is not like it's, you know, it's there's a reason why, like it's a hole in your tire, and they're filling it, or not not filling it, they're
Patching it.
they're putting something over it, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if it's not like performed perfectly, there's still going to be, you know, that they have to open it up more to get the patch on, and then anyway, this is tire talk.
Yeah. Anyway, I tired.
Sorry that your tire made you tired.
Yeah. All right. Till next time. We'll see you tomorrow. Let's go Devils.